Maybe the most important element for a new player getting into best ball is roster construction. How many of each position should you draft? What do you do if you take an early running back or an early quarterback? What if you don't have a quarterback by round 10 or 11? What does roster construction really even mean? There are tons of smart ways you can construct your best ball rosters, but the golden rule is basically this. The positions where you draft a lot of quality, you don't need to draft a lot of quantity. And the positions where you're lacking quality, you probably need to draft a little more quantity. But really quick, before we dive in, make sure you go back and check out both part 1 and part 2 of this series, How to Win at Best Ball, where we covered the first 2 critical elements to becoming a good best ball player, the rules and the draft. When it comes to roster construction in best ball, there are 8 main types of ways that you can put your rosters together. They all generally rely on that quality versus quantity discussion. We're going to touch on all 8 of those, what they mean, and how you can use them in your drafts. The very first one is elite quarterback. Probably pretty straightforward, but in elite quarterback, you're drafting one of the top handful of players at the position because those quarterbacks offer a combination of floor and ceiling that you just can't find later in the draft. With this construction, you don't need to draft very many quarterbacks at all because you have that elite guy. And generally, you're probably stopping with just 2. Next up is elite tight end, similar to elite quarterback. But here, you're drafting one of the top handful of tight ends because those are the only players at a weak tight end position that can produce at such a high level to give you a huge advantage over the rest of your opponents. Just like elite quarterback, probably don't need to draft too many tight ends when you draft one of those elite guys, and you're probably stopping with just 2. The third strategy goes to the opposite extreme. Late round quarterback. It's essentially the opposite of elite quarterback. And even though you're unlikely to get elite production at the QB position, drafting late round quarterbacks, since quarterback scoring is a little more predictable, you can spend just some late round picks on that position and maybe take 1 or 2 more with the hopes that you come close to matching those top quarterback scoring, and you're beating your opponents at every other position, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. The fourth roster construction, you guessed it, late round tight end. Of course, similar to late round quarterback, but here we know that the tight end position can be really low scoring. So if we wait until the later rounds to invest in it and we draft 1 or 2 more total tight ends than our opponents do, we can hope that those players come together to produce enough good weeks for us by having multiple of them, or by using more picks at that position, we give ourselves more shots at finding that diamond in the rough who breaks out and is no longer a late round pick, but more of an early pick, or hopefully even an elite tight end heading into next season. The rest of the roster constructions largely center around how many running backs you're taking and when you're drafting your running backs. The first one of these, the cult favorite, Zero RB. Zero RB really attempts to take advantage of the fact that NFL seasons are chaotic. Injuries happen all the time, particularly to running backs, and even very high-end running back production can be replaceable just by the running back being out there and getting the touches on his offense. So if you wait to draft your running backs till the middle or later rounds, you can still stumble into players who end up with really high level production and high level upside despite not investing super early at the position. And this way, you can still get running back production and you can dominate your opponents at every other position. Next up, Hero RB. It's actually pretty similar to Zero RB, except that we know that the most highly drafted running backs are the ones with the truly greatest and biggest upside. So in this construction, we draft that one early running back, aka the hero. And after we take that early workhorse stud running back, we use our Zero RB principles and we build out our running back 2 flex and running back depth with more mid to late round players that allow us to still build really strong teams at every other position and still get that potential high-end elite running back. Next, we start to move into a little bit heavier early running back with dual RB. In this structure, we're taking 2 early running backs, and then we're going to wait till the mid to later rounds to build out the rest of our running back room. This allows us to really get high-end production in both of our RB spots, but we're not going totally overboard. This is where we'll definitely start to take into account the quality versus quantity aspect. So we're probably not taking a ton of running backs here because we want to count on those 2 superstars that we drafted early. And finally, robust RB, a more extreme approach to early running backs where we invest really heavily early in the draft with 3 or even 4 highly drafted first 3, 4, 5 round running backs. But going back to that quantity versus quality discussion from the beginning, once we draft multiple of those backs early, that's when we stop drafting running backs on that team. Because we spent so much of our draft capital on the running back position, we really want to bank on those running backs to carry us for the entire season. And that way, we can use a greater quantity of picks at the other positions to make up for the fact that we're lacking a little bit of the high-end quality at a position like wide receiver. While everyone has their favorite roster constructions, the best drafters know how to effectively implement all these different roster constructions. Because as we discussed in part 2 of this series, sometimes the draft doesn't go according to plan. And you're also going to need to get practice and get reps and figure out how to implement each one of these strategies. There are even some advanced ways to blend some of these concepts together within the same draft, whether it be drafting an elite quarterback team and a 0 running back team together in the same draft, or by pushing the limits of something like a robust running back team. But let's not get ahead of ourselves with all of that just yet. That's a wrap for part 3 of how to win at best ball, roster construction, and be on the lookout for part 4, covering one of the hottest subjects in all of best ball, the playoffs.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there, you can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.